Welcome to another episode of Spy Ales und Hockey Tales mit Volley. And today I'm so excited to have on a 24-year-old, a 24-year-old from coming aus Bad Nauheim, Deutschland. Bad Nauheim, Germany, folks. He graduated from school in 2017 and dove right into pro hockey with the Eishockey News and is running amok of Deutschland. That fun fact, yours truly has been on the cover of way back in 2012 with the Hellbrunner Falcons. He is a gamer and now a shed guy, as he's been willing to take the time to interview a fat old washed up guy 10 years after I was asked to kindly leave Germany. Welcome to my back deck, Tim Heß.
Thank you. That's quite the intro.
Well, I would have more stuff, but the research team didn't have time to find anything on you. I couldn't find any dirt,
No, I like it that way. It's fine.
Well, I get into how we know each other, and you reached out to me about interviewing me for the Ice Hockey News, and I mean, that made me happy, made me proud of what I'd done in Germany, and I thought we may as well just record our chat, and then I got some questions for you, right? So it could be a pod and a magazine article, right?
Yeah. Like you said, and just found out about the podcast last week, I think, and then I listened into a couple of episodes. I think it was with Mike McNamee and James Livingston, because they both played in Bad Nauheim. So I just wanted to hear what they were talking on, and we obviously have the series in our magazine which comes out every week, where we just tell stories about what former players are doing now, and obviously what you're doing is pretty interesting because it's still connected to the game of hockey. So I just thought I'd reach out, and you were so kind to answer immediately. So we're here right now.
Yeah, exactly. And the Ice Hockey News is the biggest magazine. I remember every year they'd have the season preview, and they'd have a thing on every team and things about each player, and it's pretty cool as a player when there are magazines out there, right?
Yeah, I would hope so, because we just finished the season preview, obviously for this year, because the leagues are about to start here in Germany, and we're doing well. I'm mainly working on the DL2, so the second tier of German hockey, and like for a few
my old honey hole.
Yeah, for a few years now we had this where we have like one cover for each team, so which one cover athlete. We didn't have that always in the second league, but now
well,
we have
and
it
that's actually, it's crazy when you're playing hockey and the things that you don't save and keep and make a point to go get one is when I was playing for Hellbrunn, and we had signed some bigger name imports, and we were going for it, and it didn't work out that well. But the season preview, I do remember that in Hellbrunn, the magazine had us on the cover of the Ice Hockey News, and I thought, wow, that is really cool. I go to the train station and I'm on the cover of a magazine with Kevin Mastiuk, David Fisher, and to see that, and I thought it was so neat. And I'm thinking, geez, I'm on the cover of every Ice Hockey News in the country, but that was actually just in Hellbrunn, right?
yeah. Because we have that like that regional thing. Obviously, the Heilbronn fans, they want to see a player of theirs on the cover, so that's why we do it that way. But yeah,
it's cool. And then the funny thing was I did get one, and I gave it to my parents, so now I don't even have one. But it was pretty neat to have that. And I remember the other thing, when I was playing in Bietigheim, and you're young and you think you're going to play forever and you don't need to get anything, is I remember the year I played in Bietigheim, we won the championship, and a kid came in the locker room and he was wearing a t-shirt with me and Justin Kelly on it. And it was like the coolest shirt ever, because me and him were quite the tag team. And to see they had a shirt made up of us on it, and I didn't get one. I don't have that shirt. You know how bad I want one of those shirts now?
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So guys that are listening, that are still playing, you should get the cool stuff that people make, right? And keep it.
Yeah, well, I think it's a nice thing to have if you like just get one each year, and then you see like the different players that were on the cover. Like sometimes I see the covers from like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I say, well, we had that player on the cover. I didn't think about him like the last 2 years, but that just makes you think about the players again.
Yeah, and it brings back memories, and that's actually what I'm doing with my podcast. Is it brings back all these memories that like were gone. I really hadn't thought about my hockey life or my memories or some of the friends, and you get chatting with your old friends, and it brings you back to that time of your life. And there were some good times I had over there.
Yeah. So you just started on your own? Like, do you do
Yeah,
everything yourself?
I just do it all on my own. I went on 2 podcasts, one in Cardiff, Wales, with my old coach. He was doing it for a little bit, and then Jeff Lavecchio, who runs the hockey think tank out of St. Louis, and he was my college roommate on the road and everything. And I did those two. I realized how much I enjoyed reminiscing about hockey. I realized how much I missed my friends. I realized I missed being that guy and talking the shit like we do in the locker room and not being so serious all the time. And then I realized, like, you hear about all these other people that have started them, and it's like, well, why can't I do this? Why can all these other guys make it and go do these cool things in life and I don't? And it like struck me one day that's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go Google how to make a podcast and I'm just gonna start doing them. And when I started doing it, I loved it. And then to think I can make that memory for all my buddies that played in leagues that people maybe aren't aware of around the world, but like tonight I'm going to have on Calvin Elfring and Craig Teeple. And these are
Oh,
2 guys with their jerseys retired in Germany.
yeah.
And they come back to North America. Nobody knows about that. And nobody cares. And, I give them a platform that they actually get to remember who they are and who they were.
Yeah, I love that explanation. I really like it. Yeah, and I think it's fun for me to write about like former players as well because the reasons you listed, like just players talking about their days, remembering stuff, and sometimes it's just easier to talk about stuff that happened, like when you're not active anymore. So that kind of
Yeah.
brings out some funny stories.
Well, for sure. And when you're playing, you can't maybe tell all the stories that go
Yeah.
on because you got, you just can't.
What
But then when it's over, then, you don't have to worry about what teams or people think of you. And that's been the best thing for me is I no longer care what people think.
what popped into my head immediately? How did you choose your first guest?
Um, well, it was Dr. Luke Piggott. He was one of my best friends in Cardiff. And I mean, there's lots of reasons. He's a doctor, but he's also an absolute dandy. He was just like an ultimate teammate. He We went on a skiing trip at the end of my season when I'm hurt and done for life and I couldn't ski. And he didn't ski. He stayed with me at the chalet. He spent the time with me so that I wasn't sitting alone. He helped me with my schoolwork when I was doing my master's in Cardiff. He would be giving my kid nice birthday presents. Not that that's a big thing, but he was just an ultimate teammate and do anything for the team. And he was a doctor.
Yeah, okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe talking a bit about your playing career, like you were born in Georgetown, Ontario, at least elite prospects telling me that. Is that correct?
Well, so I was born in Georgetown, but only lived in that area till I was like not even 1 years old, and I moved to Elmira, Ontario. That's where I'm from. That's where I was
Okay,
raised. So I'm from Elmira, and then yeah, grew up to end up playing for my hometown junior B Elmira Sure Kings, and then
okay,
and then from there got a scholarship.
okay. And so you went on to play college hockey in America. That's kind of interesting if you're a Canadian player, I think, because a lot of players go through junior leagues.
Yeah, it was a bit different of a path then, but back then OHL was very much big guys. There's a lot of fighting. There wasn't
Yeah.
a lot of room for small guys in any hockey back then, especially in junior. And I did go to Brampton of the OHL. I did pretty well make the team. And I had to make the decision that if you play a preseason game, you can no longer get a scholarship. Um, so I made the decision not to play a preseason game and go back to Elmira. And I told them I was going to go try and get a scholarship. They did call later that season trying to convince me to come back, but by that point, I'd already had a scholarship to Western Michigan, and I knew what I was doing, and I had gotten what I went out to do.
How far away from home was it? Western Michigan University.
It's about 5.5 hour drive. So,
Okay.
what's interesting is my parents did make it pretty much every single weekend to watch.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it was actually pretty fun because all my college roommates, the parents would come and the parents be right at the college parties with us having a time.
So you did the full 4 years, I think, because it's usual to do 4 years in America, right?
Yeah, that's to be graduated. There was talk of me leaving after my junior year when I had been up for the Hobie Baker, and I think at the end of the regular season I was fourth in college in scoring, and my agent basically said I wouldn't be going back to school, and then the lockout and everything happened, and I went back for a senior year. So yeah, I did go all 4 years, but
Okay, so is the lockout something that maybe hindered your chances to get on
well,
the
I think
NHL radar?
the lockout is it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody with what's going on. That pro year when I went back to college, I mean, there's a lot of guys that didn't have many places to play because of all the NHL guys that came down to the AHL and all those other guys from the NHL that wanted to take the European jobs too. It was really the same when I was in Hellbron that year. There was a lockout and a bunch of NHL guys come over, and it's like, well, they're taking the jobs from the guys that this is our career too. And you guys have lots of money and we like hockey and we like our jobs. And then they come over and take them. And I found it weird because you do it to maybe sell more tickets and get the fans excited. But if it's about winning, those guys aren't going to be there in playoffs. The lockout was over and they were back home. And it's like, so why did we waste all this money on guys that weren't going to be here when it's time to win the championship?
Mm-hmm. Do you still talk to some players who are on your university team?
Oh yeah. I just had on my last year, they were the rookies. I just had on like their whole class one night.
Okay.
And then I've had on my roommates. I've been having a lot of fun.
Okay. I saw that actually Petre Pol was on your team back then, and he's actually still playing in Germany and just went to a team at the end of last season that's in DL2.
Yeah, he played with me in Dayton and Syracuse. He was one of the draft picks. I was on an NHL deal. He played mainly with me in Dayton that year. We went to the finals, and then he has had a heck of a career since then. He's played on a lot of big teams, and I did see he got his German pass as well, because when I knew he was a Czech, right? And then I found out he got his German pass as well. So yeah, he's had a heck of a career. Good little player.
Okay, so that was in the ECHL, you said?
Yeah, and the AHL. He would have been in the same organization with Columbus with me.
Okay, so that was basically the Columbus Blue Jackets organization.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you remember about that 1 year you had mainly ECHL?
Well, I had been on the NHL radar there at the end of my senior year, and then I went to Syracuse in the AHL, and the deal was that they would get first crack at signing me July 1st if I went there. And then I went there. I couldn't use my own sticks. I had to just grab any righties off the shelf. They had nothing similar to me. They only had like 5 right-handed guys on their team. And I couldn't use Bauer sticks. So I had to use random sticks. And as a skill guy, I couldn't pass it where I wanted. I couldn't shoot it where I wanted. And I did struggle. It was some of the worst hockey I've ever played. And I do recall a game it was my chance in the AHL, and I did get my bell rung. And back in those days, you didn't always tell people when that sort of thing happened. Mm-hmm. And I tried to fight through it and play through it. And I probably really sucked that game because I couldn't really see. And when you look back on it, I probably should have told them, and then they would have been aware that what was going on. But when you finally get your chance and you're there, and you're finally in the lineup, and that happens, I kept playing through it, but maybe I shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm. So what was it at the start of the season when you were in the AHL, or was it like just multiple points throughout?
Yeah, well, yeah, for the next year there, my rookie year, I made the team out of camp, the AHL team, basically. And then right when the regular season was starting, a couple more guys came down from Columbus, and then I got healthy scratched a couple games. I was sitting around doing nothing after playing great in the preseason, I probably had almost 2 points a game in the preseason, and then I wasn't in the lineup to start the regular season because of all the guys on contracts. And once I'd been sitting out and I was a rookie and I was young, they said, well, let's send you to the coast for a couple weeks, and then you'll come back and be on the top 2 lines because you're not a bottom 2 line player. So I went down to the coast for a couple weeks. They did call me back up, and this was supposed to be my chance on the top two lines. And then the guy that was supposed to be injured, by the time I go from Dayton to Syracuse and we go out for warm up, and then he decides he is not too hurt to play and that he's going to play. I end up playing one game on the fourth line, and they said, well, you're not a fourth line guy, time to head back. And then basically I was in the coast for the year. But that did feel like my team. We were a team in Dayton, and we actually almost won it all. We went to the finals with a ragtag bunch that, I mean, we were going basically bankrupt, and that we went all the way to the finals, and we upset like the Florida Everblades in the semifinals. It was a heck of a run, and I mean, I have friends for life from that team too.
Right after that, obviously, was the big decision to go to Europe. So maybe you can talk a bit about that, why you made that big decision, and
yeah, it's actually small world. As I grew up an Elmira Shuriken fan, watching my hometown team play, and I went and saw Brandon Dietrich and Rob Collins, a couple guys you'd probably know from Germany. I watched them win the Sutherland Cup in my hometown in front of my own eyes, and I saw what it did to a community. I saw what it did to my town, and everybody that was going, and how exciting it was. And then I got to do that myself years later. But the funny thing was, when I made the Cheer Kings, I wore number 23 the first year because of Rob Collins, because he was. And then when I could get number 10, I'd be number 10. So the next 2 years I was number 10, and that was because of Brandon Dietrich. Well, when I have the decision to go to Germany or not, I get a call from Brandon Dietrich's agent or whoever, and he says, this team wants you. They're looking for a winger to play with Brandon. And I'm thinking, so I'm getting asked to go to Germany to play with my favorite player growing up, and why I wear number 10. So my agent that I had at the time told me to stay in North America, that I should give it another year. I really didn't enjoy the East Coast. I didn't enjoy the way I had been treated by the organization I was with. They did offer me an East Coast AHL deal the next year, but that seemed like a step backwards. I said I didn't want that. If I'm going to play in the coast, I may as well play somewhere nice, and hopefully get called up by anybody. So I was actually heading to Pensacola, Florida to play in the East Coast. I was going to hit an AHL camp on the way in Rockford. So I was skating with my Western Michigan Broncos that I used to play with, on my way through to AHL. And they called me, the German team Landshut called me again 2 weeks later after I had said no. They called me 2 weeks later and said, have you thought about this? Because you are the player we want. And they gave me a tiny bit more money than they originally offered. And within that time, one of Brandon's friends, Dave Cousineau, who I went to Western Michigan with, one of my mentors, he had called me one day and said, you're not going to Germany? Why? And I was like, well, I don't think I should yet. And he says, well, do you think you're going to make the NHL? And I was like, well, no. After my rookie year and seeing where I was at and what people thought of me, I was like, no. I'm 5'8", and the guys that are on top two lines in the NHL are, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. So I said, no. He says, so what are you doing? You can go to Germany and play with Brandon. He's like, this is a real league and there's money over there. And like, this is your opportunity to go. And we had that conversation, and then they just happened to call me later. Usually a team in Europe, if you say you want someone and they say no, they usually just move on. There's a lot of players out there, but that they called again 2 weeks later and said how badly they wanted me, it did change my mind. So then I did call Lisa, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and I said, I think I should go to Germany for my future and for my career. And I didn't know what she was going to say because she was getting her job transferred to Florida. We had a plan of what we were doing for the year. And then she said, okay, when do we leave? And I'm like, well, I'm going to go to the airport like tomorrow and fly out. And then you can come a couple of weeks later when I get things set up. And it literally happened that fast that like, I just turned around and went to the Detroit airport instead of the AHL camp. And then all of a sudden our lives were changed forever. And then, I mean, yeah, it's bizarre thinking about now.
So did you go over just before the season in Germany started?
It wasn't till they had already had their preseason. They were 4 games into the regular season.
Okay.
Bill True was waiting for his German passport to play with Straubing. So they had him playing until when he got his German pass was when I came over, and that was 4 games into the regular season.
So how did they find you in that maze of North American players? Did you think it was because of Brandon Dietrich or?
Brandon Dietrich, when they asked him if he knew someone, he said me. And the other thing was Vince Bellissimo, my college teammate from Western Michigan at the time, was ripping up the DEL in preseason and the start of the regular season. And our college stats were very similar. And they saw what he was doing in the DEL, and they thought, well, if he can do that in the DEL, this guy surely can do it in the second league.
Okay, interesting. So did you play that whole year on Brandon Dietrich's line?
No, it was definitely because of what I thought of him and growing up idolizing him that I wouldn't shoot the puck. I'd always try and pass to him, and I'd always try and set him up. And I remember Bernd Truchka, who was our GM and was running the team then, he would lose his marbles for not shooting. And it was when they separated us that I started being the player I could be and not overthinking things and trying to score myself. And mainly the whole year I played with Peter Abstrader, who's one of my favorite line mates ever, absolute legend of a guy. And we played pretty well the whole year. And then it was either Brandon or Alish Kratoshka as the centerman.
Okay. So what was the expectation for that team back then, and how far did you go?
Well, we lost by 1 goal. We went right to the finals. We played Castle in the finals, and we lost in overtime of the final game. Game 5 of a best of 5. We lost in overtime, and it is crazy how different winning is than losing. And that was a hard day for all of us. We weren't expected to go that far. We weren't expected to be in the finals, but we had a squad. We had great people that were a team that would do anything for each other. We had a hot goalie, and we were playing the way bigger budget Castle Huskies. And I mean, we took them as far as we could take them. But it was tough. I had lost in the East Coast finals my rookie year after a very long playoffs. And then you lose that one in overtime. In my first 2 years of professional, I've lost in the finals both times. So it was very hard. And then you're seeing grown men cry, and you're a young guy just getting into it, but you're seeing guys that are 38, 39 years old that realize how few opportunities you have to do something special. It hurt that day.
Back then, was it like really uncommon to go over to Europe at such a young age?
Yeah, I think it was more uncommon then. Back then in the AHL, you could kind of work your way up. You could be a 28-year-old guy that's worked his way up, and then he gets a shot. Nowadays, it seems like if kids aren't making it by the time they're 22, they're too old, and it's kind of sad to see. But there definitely seems to be guys willing to move sooner, and maybe I guess I was a trailblazer at that.
So after that season or during that season, well, you obviously didn't stay in Landshut, but you went to Bietigheim. So maybe you can talk about that, like how you signed in Bietigheim.
Yeah, that was probably that felt good as a hockey player. I had played in Landshut for the year. We're having a playoff run, but the first 2 series we won, both teams offered me a contract after we put them out. So I guess obviously in those playoffs, I was doing something right because we beat Bietigheim in the first round, and they offered me. And then we put out Hellbron, and we were shaking hands at the end of the series. And Rico Rossi, who's been on my podcast, says, "You're a great player. If you ever want a job, you let me know." and that's pretty cool to hear when you just had a series against a team and the other coach thinks that of you. It meant a lot that the 2 teams we had played in the playoffs, obviously wanted me. But after playing against Bietigheim and seeing their trap system and seeing how their coach behaved on the bench and was vocal and they just trapped, I wasn't leaning towards going to Bietigheim. I thought playing for Rico and Hellbrunn made more sense, but then it ended up happening when we were talking about playing with Justin Kelly, and I'd seen him play, and then they gave me a little bit more money than originally, and then they did go higher than Helbron, and it was an interesting decision because they made us go July 1st, and as a Canadian guy that goes to Germany and leaves their family and friends, summer's important to you. Getting to
Mhm.
be with your friends and your family is important. And making the decision to go July 1st was difficult. We did have a great time. You get there with all your imports and you're there for a month. And the weekends are getting to know each other and becoming a team. But it was hard to not have your July at home.
Mhm. How did you and your back then girlfriend, now wife, adjust to living in Landshut and Bavarian culture? Because it's not like just like
Well,
it's just
it's
different than normal Germany, if I say so.
I love Bavaria. I loved around Baden-Württemberg too, in the Bietigheim area. I was very fortunate the places I played. But it's definitely an adjustment. I remember just going to the grocery store is a different thing, like how everything works and returning bottles. But then like how fast you got to get your groceries up and get them off, and like everybody seems to be in such a big rush to pay for their food. Um, I I remember my wife going to the grocery store at the start, and the person was saying something to her in German. She didn't know what they were saying, which turned out that the card machine didn't work and they only took cash, but she didn't know what she was saying. And it
Yeah.
turned into her just leaving all the groceries the on the thing and leaving because she didn't know what to do. So there's definitely some ups and downs of getting used to it, but for the guys that play over there now, it's worth learning German. It's worth knowing as much as you can. It makes life better. It makes living there better. By the time I could speak German better, I just felt way more comfortable and at home, you know?
Mhm, mhm. Actually, it just popped into my mind yesterday. I was attending Bad Nauheim against Augsburg preseason game. Augsburg's obviously in the DEL, but their goalie and video coach now is Sinisa Martinovic, which you probably know.
Oh yeah. Where is he?
He's now the goalie and video coach at Augsburg, and I learned that yesterday when he just came in, like and like sat right next to me.
Oh, he's a beauty. Yeah, we won it together in Bietigheim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was
Yeah,
that the first year in Bielefeld, right?
that's right. Yeah. So then I did go to Bietigheim. And basically the idea of putting me with Justin Kelly on the first line with Sarakov, it worked right away. We were playing DL teams in the preseason, doing very well. We were beating DL teams. Justin and I were doing our thing right from the start. And then yeah, that was like a career year for me. That was the best year I ever played. It was playing with Justin. We were an incredible team. Like we had over four lines of great players. Our fourth line could play. Our sixth defenseman could play. It was wild how good we were.
So how much did that mean to you that you finally won in the finals after
Yeah. Well, after you've lost in the finals 2 years in a row, when you finally get it done, uh, things could get away from you. That's for sure.
guessing
Uh,
the
it was a long night. The first night when we got it done, we were in the Munich locker room for a while, in the cabina, drinking beers, and then you have a long bus trip back with just your team, which is pretty cool. There's differences between winning at home and winning on the road. Winning on the road and you get that trip back, just the guys. Um, it was a really fun few hours, and then they dropped us off at this warehouse. And there was a live band. There were thousands of fans waiting for us, and that party went all night.
Mhm.
And then the next day, I had told the guys because they always made fun of my clothes, they always made fun of my jeans. I said, "Well, if we win it, I'll cut my jeans off and we'll hit downtown." So the next day, like as soon as we woke up after very limited sleep, someone texted and said like let's go down for beers, and I was like okay, let me just cut my jeans off. And I cut my jeans off so short that like my underwear was hanging out, and we went downtown and started drinking again, and I didn't even know we had a parade. I had no idea about any of it. I was just living. And same with all of us. There was about 7 or 8 of us down there and had been going all afternoon, and then all of a sudden they come get us and say there's a parade. and holy moly, I was in one. um, and then I had my dog with me, so then my dog was in the parade. We got to the arena, and I'm in the trunk of the car with two dogs because we only had a tiny little car, and there's like 7 or 8 of us to get to the arena. And they open up the trunk, and I roll out, and I have the two dogs with me. And the news was like videoing this while I'm rolling out of the back of a car in my cut off jeans. It was something. Yeah. I wasn't very much of a pro that day, but guess that's what happens when you lose 2 years in the row in the finals, right? It wasn't my fault. I was
Yeah, that's
happy.
yeah, that's fine. If you win, you can celebrate it.
If you win, you can do whatever you want, right? You can run
Yeah,
amok. Yeah.
definitely.
But it was that was a tough night.
So the year after, you only played 4 games. Was it injury related?
Oh, jeepers. That's a long story too. Um, this is weird. You're like interviewing me on this podcast. I feel like I was going to be interviewing you. No, I went over there. We played a preseason tournament in Heilbronn. My knee didn't feel right. Dropped to my knees in the corner and felt it go. Um, and it had torn my PCL. So we went and got after that happened, I went and saw 3 different doctors. Beatingheim had me go see a guy in Landshut that was friends with the coach, and then 2 other doctors, and everybody had a different plan of what I should do. One guy said it was 3 to 6 months. One guy was basically saying surgery or something. The other guy said, oh, it's just a partial tear, 4 to 6 weeks, you'll be good. And that happened to be the coach's friend in Landshut, who they went had me drive to Landshut to see. So obviously we went with the 4 to 6 weeks. I didn't really have anyone advising me of what I should really do. I was doing it because I love playing hockey. I hated missing games. I wanted to come back as soon as possible too, but once it exactly got to 4 weeks, was the first game of the regular season. My knee wasn't ready. I could feel it wasn't ready.
Mhm.
They had me in a brace and saying the brace is going to hold it all together. Um, and then I'll never forget that the morning of the pre-game of the game, the first regular season game, and I'm out there for team stretch. I've hardly done anything. And the coach says, and we're going to have Wally back unless he's a pussy. And the coach says that in front of all of my teammates. And it's like, well, obviously I was going to play and I'm not a pussy, but now that you say that, like, I'll show you what I'm going to do. And then I did play 4 games basically on one leg. Um, and then I got hit. I was going headfirst into the end boards and I brought my leg up to like take the impact. And then I felt it completely go. And I fully tore my PCL, had to have reconstruction. I never should have been playing yet. And I just find it so interesting in Germany how there can be so much pressure to win a couple games at the start of a regular season that, like, you need me come playoffs. You need me being healthy when it's
Yeah.
time to win something. You don't need me playing the first regular season game on one leg. Why don't I get healthy and then play for real? And it still bothers me. But it did change my life. I was never the same. I did my best to come back, and I did play 6 more years, but I I was not as fast. I wasn't as quick. It was always something I was dealing with, and then eventually it did go again when I was in Cardiff. Um, but yeah, it's like for players that don't have, I don't know, people being on the right side of it for them, explaining what
Mhm.
they really should do with injuries. There is no way or reason I should have been playing those first 4 regular season games with a
Mhm.
partially torn PCL. But you live and you learn, and it is what it is, I guess, right?
Mhm. So did they tell you that they still want you back for next season immediately after the injury? And why did you stay if the maybe the you weren't so happy with what the coach did or said?
Well, I knew I should have spoke up. I knew I shouldn't have played. And I knew he wanted me to play because he knew I could help. But what happened was, like, I loved Bietigheim. I loved playing with Justin Kelly. I loved my teammates. I loved the town. The fans treated me incredibly. When I'd get called out for games, they called me Mr. Brent Walton. And they had me on like life size on the arena, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're putting me up on the arena, it's like, okay, we're into this. There's no doubt that I want to be in Bietigheim, but their budget had plummeted. I think the coach also felt bad what he had done because basically I said I'd stay in Germany for the season to show them I was getting better, to show them I was better so that they would sign me because I thought if I just went back to Canada, we were planning on being in Germany for the year and then the injury happens. And it's like, well, what do we do now? Like, what are we going to do if we go home? So we stayed in Germany and then I proved to them I was better. And then it was right around when playoffs were starting. I got a clean bill of health that I was ready to go for the start of next season, but I couldn't play that year. So then I told the team I was gonna head out and go home for the summer and get ready. But basically, come Christmas, after I had been going through a tough time and a bit depressed that I'm not playing and my season's over and I'm a hockey guy and that's what I do. Um, I'd gained some weight. I couldn't exercise. I couldn't do much. The next season seemed like a long ways away, so I was getting fat. And then the coach calls me into his office on New Year's Eve. I go New Year's Day to see him, and he says, "Are you done with hockey?" And I'm like, "No, I'm like 25 years old, 26." And he's like, "Well, you look like you're done. You're so fat, there's no way you're gonna play again." So that he said, "If you want to play here next season, you're gonna do whatever I say for the rest of the season." And that turned into 90 minutes a day on the bike in the sauna. I had to ride a
So
bike in a sauna that was only big enough for the bicycle. Nothing else was in there. And I would go in there, and this is before iPhones and all the fun stuff you can play on now. I'd have a little iPod with music, and I'd go into the sauna while the guys practiced for 90 minutes a day. And I tell you, that place put between your butt and your aya, it was as sore as it could get by the end of that year. I couldn't
that
even
sounds,
walk.
yeah, that sounds insane.
It was insane. That
So
coach
you
was insane.
so you had a couple more seasons there, but I think Justin Kelly wasn't there anymore, if I'm
That's
correct.
right. Yeah. So
And
after that year, when I'd gone back to play with Justin and then I blow up my knee and I don't get to do it, the budget's still not good there. And then he leaves to go to the DL. So then that was my place I could go back to. And wow, like realistically, I played with PJ Fenton. Me and him really jived, and Renee Schoafs, but there wasn't a Justin Kelly there,
yeah, so the 2 years weren't as successful.
Well, it just we weren't as good. We didn't have the
Yeah,
same team. We didn't have the depth that German. People
yeah,
can say what they want, and I probably shouldn't say this as an import, but I think teams are built around the Germans. The better your
yeah,
Germans are, the
definitely.
better your team is. And it's like I go to Landshut, we got 3 lines of older Germans that can all play and all fill a role. And then, the imports kind of balance each other out between the teams. It's all what you got with
Mhm.
Germans, I think.
So you did one more season in Germany after that time in Bietigheim. So yeah, just talk about that year in Heilbronn, maybe.
Well, so that was the new coach in Bietigheim that came in, made it clear that he was making changes and I wasn't in the plans. Um, so it's interesting. It comes back to that first playoff run in
Hmm.
Landshut. Um, Rico Rossi saying he to let him know if I ever wanted a job.
Yeah.
We were having a beer at the Pokal finals in the beer garden in the VIP section, me and Rico, and we're just shooting the breeze because I'm not playing. And he says, "Well, we've talked about this before. Maybe now's the time you come play for me." And I'm like, "Maybe now is the time." And within a week, we had it done. And I had played my last game in Bietigheim. And it was crazy to think of that, like, Bietigheim felt like home. I felt like I'd play there my whole career. And then within a week, you're leaving to the biggest rivals and nobody even seems to give a shit, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. So how did that season go team wise?
It was a strange one because we had all the tools. I'd say we were probably too little and skilled, then didn't have enough meat and potatoes. We weren't that I think we were kind of easy to play against, but we were talented and good. But for some reason it was in our head or what, but we always seemed to find a way to lose. We'd have leads, and it just became like the mentality that we'd end up pissing it down our leg. But we went on a bit of a run the second half, made the playoffs, and then we played Schwenningen the first round, who, well, they beat us. So we underachieved a bit, and then as it is in Germany, if you underachieve as a team, they ask you to kindly leave and get the new guys in, right?
So you had, but I think you had Jonathan Bernier on your team in that season.
Yeah, so he came for like a month or two while our goalie was injured. We had a lot of goalies that year. But yeah, he was phenomenal goalie. And he just came until he was going to the Spengler Cup or something. So that's one of those ones where it's like it made sense for our team because we needed a goalie for that month or two because ours was out. But like I remember other teams, they'd have 8 imports and only 5 could play. And it's like, well, who's winning the championship for you at the end of the year? You know?
So did you connect with him a little bit because you were Canadian as well?
Oh yeah, and he like in Helbron, it was pretty neat that like all the players kind of lived in the same complex area. There was like there had to have been like 10 of us all right in the same area. So yeah, we would always if the team's going out after the games for food and a couple beers, he was always involved. Yeah, and I think he just retired.
Mm-hmm. So the what followed was 1 year in Denmark where I think you won the championship again.
Yeah, we did win the championship in Denmark, and that was a very strange summer for me. I had been in Germany for 6 years. That's where people knew me as a player and as a person. I had no interest from teams in Germany anymore, at least that I'm aware of. I had an agent that was doing everything for me, and that there wasn't a lot happening. And I go back for the summer. I have no job. I don't know what I'm going to be doing the next season. And I had just had a son in Helbron. And so then you go home and you got a house and a kid. And, it was, I was working for my uncle, tiling a bathroom for him in the summer. And I got a call from Dan Seaman, that was the coach in Sunderjyske, Denmark. And we had a good chat about hockey and life. And then they did offer, and I saw they had won it the year before. The coach had stepped down and Dan had taken over. So it was his first year as a head coach. He seemed like a great guy and is a great guy. He actually just won in Slovakia now. And I knew who Corey Quirk was, who played in Rosenheim, and I knew how good Corey Quirk was from playing against him. So when he says, I want you to come here and play with Corey Quirk, it's like, oh yeah, I'm into that. And then we went there, and it was kind of like Justin and I, right from the start of the season, we were on the same page, and we did rip up Denmark that year. We tied for second in the league in scoring behind a guy you'd probably know, Alex Levitt, that ran amok in Germany all those years. But yeah, it was a great year. We were first place all year and ended up winning the playoffs in game 7. So it was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Have you actually been, just popped into my mind, have you actually been to Germany since you ended your playing career there?
I have never once gone back other than for knee appointments with the BG. Did have to go see a couple doctors to show it's as bad as it is. But other than that, it does hurt my heart that I was invited for Justin Kelly's retirement jersey, retiring his jersey. Justin invited me back for his game, as well as Renee Schoff's, just this last year. And to think of them thinking of me and wanting to bring me back and then not being able to make it, it just hurts your heart, because it's like a once in a lifetime thing to get invited back by a former teammate that they're getting their jersey retired. And to think I had anything to do with helping them do that is pretty neat. But for Renee's, I had already been invited to go back to a guy's game in Cardiff, Wales, where I'd played at the end. And then the other time when Justin had his game, I was also having my own game in Cardiff, where they had a Wally night. So I couldn't do both. And I was having a night for myself, which it was pretty cool that Justin and I were both having nights for ourselves in two different places. But that was a magical year we had together.
So you're still connected to Cardiff, like in a great way, obviously.
Well, it was a life-changing day, to be honest. When you've been back from the game for years, you're basically totally out of the game. And then for them to think of having me back, when I'd only played there a year and a bit, and that they have me back for a night was like, it was confusing, but also like emotional. And then when like they explained why they brought me back and whatnot, it meant a lot, and it's changed me as a person. And it made all the teams that asked me to leave, and you start wondering about yourself as a person, as a teammate, um when they're having you back and having a Wally night, and then like they write to you saying, this is why, keep being you. That could mean a lot for a guy.
Thank you so much for telling me all that, all your stories about your cities you played in and stuff. It's really apprecited.
Yeah, no, and thanks for asking for the interview. I still got all these questions for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then the weird part is how the whole story ends then is, so Denmark, we win the championship. I'm second in the league in scoring. And I go in for my exit meeting, and they say that they're not offering me, that they're spending money on more Danish talent and this or that excuse. And then the second guessing yourself and what you're about and who you are. And then all of a sudden you're switching teams again, which isn't fun with a family. And I end up in Cardiff, Wales, and I don't know much about the UK league. I'm going there to get my master's, and it was so fulfilling when we won again. We won the Challenge Cup that year, and it meant a lot that we did have success that year, because I wasn't sure how it was all going to go. And it I don't know. I like to prove people wrong or whatever. When people don't ask you back, that I did go to Cardiff, and we did win something, and same in Denmark when Helbrand didn't want me back. You can, it's kind of like saying F you to them, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So are you almost done interviewing me?
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, my knee went the second year in Cardiff, and then I guess the part I left out was once I was injured and they said my career was over forever and I'd never be cleared again. I did start doing the pregame speeches, and I would do them naked and spray painted as different superheroes and different things. And I'd go in as that person if I was Thor or if I was the Hulk. And then I would go in and do the pregame speeches like that and try and get the boys fired up. And yeah, it was an interesting time in my life.
Maybe one follow-up. Did you ever, if you have a great connection to the players like that, did you ever think about becoming a coach?
So I am coaching now, and
You're
I love
coaching now.
it. I like coaching. I love it. So I don't get paid. I do it voluntarily, but I started my first year doing it was under 11 with my son's team. We had an incredible team, as tight as you can get in hockey. We went to the All Ontario quarterfinals, won some huge games, and then you see these kids are still friends around town. They still it's almost like when I see the guys in Landsuit that have been friends their whole lives, like Dominic Hammer, Abshi, Geipe, those guys that have been grown up in the game together and just love each other. It's like I'm building that here with kids, and they're like best friends, and you see them come up when they see each other, they smile, they're so happy. And then after that year, I coached my daughter last year in under 9 girls and had just an awesome time. It was another new challenge to try and get them into hockey and love it. And by the end of the year, we were a squad, and won our last game. And I've had a ton of fun. So now this year, I'm coaching the under 13 team in town, and every year's a new challenge for me. It gets my competitive juices flowing. I have teams I'm trying to beat, people we're trying to win, and we're doing it for our town. We're doing it for each other. It's just like what I want hockey to be, you know?
Mhm. Do you want to share your kid's name and ages and the team you're coaching, the team name?
So it's the Kincardine Canucks, and I'm coaching the under 13 team, and my son's Colby and daughter Zoe Walton. So Colby was born in
Okay.
Heilbronn, Germany, and Zoe was born in Cardiff, Wales. So yeah,
So the city name is the same as in the team?
it's Kincardine is the town. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're gonna have a squad. I'm just getting into tryouts here. So we got 46 kids trying out for 15 spots. So
Cool.
it's gonna be a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay. Now I guess my question's for you. Where and what are you doing now?
Well, I'm living in Bad Nauheim again. Like when I finished school in 2017, I sent you that on text as well, but might as well tell it again. Like when I finished school in 2017, I moved from Bad Nauheim to Straubing because well, Eishockey News is located in Straubing, and they basically gave me like a tryout for 6 weeks and they wanted to see, well, this kid just finished school. We just want to check out like if he's good enough, if he has the talent to write and stuff like that. So yeah, but
And did you
after
have anything to do with hockey before? Did you play growing up or anything?
I never played myself, but my dad took me to all the Bad Nauheim games when I was a kid. So I remember like actually back in the day they used to play in the second league, but then they didn't have money and had to go back to like a third or fourth division. So that's like the first memories I have is like going to games. I'm like 5 or 6 years old, and but now I'm just playing again in the third or fourth division and winning games like easily a lot of the games. But then there was also like some years where they were in the third division with Frankfurt and Kassel, which are
Yeah.
um, the bigger teams in Hessen. So yeah, they were the underdogs in that year, and but they got back to the second league in 2013. So I think it was the first season after you left Germany that Bad Nauheim got to the DL2, which was founded in 2013.
And yeah, that's right. And their coach is now Harry Lange, who was he
Yeah.
not playing for them back then?
Yes, he was playing for them for a few years, and well, he's just loved in the city. Like he's just a great guy, and
And
when he has
I always say shed guys know shed guys. And when I played in Bietigheim and Charpentier's our goalie, and me and him are best buddies while he's there. And he raved about Harry too, and said this guy is just an absolute beauty. And then it always makes me happy when the good guys in the game are doing well. And when you hear good things about a guy and then see what he's doing now is pretty neat, right?
Yeah, and like he was assistant coach in that like 2020 2021 season. Obviously was a weird one with like no spectators and stuff like that, and it didn't go too well, even though the team had like some great individual players. But so then they fired the coach and he took over, and I think they lost like the first 7, 8, or 9 games with him, but everyone could tell like that he's just a good coach, and
Yeah.
they gave him the chance like in the next season to kind of like maybe bring in some players that he likes, and ever since then he's like transformed. But now I'm from like a bottom feeder to like they went in the semifinals 2 seasons ago, went to the finals last year, and instead of just playing like
Just
I
to
say
try
like
and make the playoffs, right?
yeah, and they had like in the first years they basically had like a defensive game style. Like I think they had to have it because of the players they had, but now they have like they're playing great hockey. They have great skaters, and yeah, so it's just a joy to watch what he's doing in like a small city like this.
Well, and then so for your poster picks, what's the CHG arena?
That's one of the final games of the finals in Ravensburg, the arena.
Oh, that's in Ravensburg.
Yeah, so I went there to watch Ravensburg against Bad Nauheim because obviously I'm in my job and
That
I
was
haven't.
Ravensburg. I've been to Ravensburg like
Yeah,
30 times. That was
Yeah,
Ravensburg. I was trying to
yeah.
figure out where that was.
Yeah, so it was one of the finals games last year, and obviously it was great for me to see Bad Nauheim play there because that's why I love the game of hockey, because I went to the Bad Nauheim games as a kid. But just now in my job, like obviously I have a more neutral position, but just to watch those games I was just enjoying this.
Well, and Small World was it Cardiff's new coach was coaching Ravensburg, wasn't he?
Yeah, Peter Russell.
Yeah. He seems to be quite successful wherever he goes.
Yeah,
And I'm wearing his shirt from his Team Great Britain team, right?
yeah, yeah. So he actually was successful at Ravensburg. Then he went to coach Augsburg last year. Things didn't go too well, and he got relieved of his job in Augsburg. But then he went back to Ravensburg immediately and won the championship with them in the second league.
Yeah.
And the
That,
funny thing is, they had like a weird rule where they have like one team getting relegated directly, which was Bielefeld,
yeah.
and the second team, Augsburg, would have been relegated if either Kassel or Krefeld or Dresden won the championship in DL2. But because Bad Nauheim beat Kassel in the semifinals, and they were huge underdogs. Like Kassel had that mammoth team,
Mhm.
so that's the only reason why Augsburg stayed up in the DEL.
It's crazy when you bring that stuff like that up, and how it
Yeah,
works is like
yeah,
then these players get that they're DEL players on their resume, and that it's like when I play in Landshut, we're a goal away from going to the DEL, so it doesn't happen. I stay in the second league. Well, then we do win with Bietigheim, and the deal was if we win, we're supposed to go up. We won, and then we don't go up because we don't have money. Well, that
yeah,
same Munich team we had just beat then wins the next year, and then all those players become DEL players, and now people think of them as DL players. It's like, well, we beat you last year and we never
yeah.
got to do that.
Yeah, there was it's like really weird still, but the good thing is like they had no like relegation and like for a few years, and then they just put it back in like
And,
a couple
and
of
I think
years
they
back.
have to have it. I think to get
Yeah,
players
they do.
paid, yeah,
They do.
like it helps getting people to pay more money to get better players and try and win more because then there's incentive.
Yeah,
When they closed it those few years, that's when I found the contracts really went down in the second league, was because teams were like, well, why are we going to try and win if we can't go anywhere?
yeah. The problem was, or it still is, that just a few teams have like good enough arenas to play in the DL because they have like certain rules for the
Right.
arenas. But yeah, also because that weird situation was created that we had last season. But we also had 15 teams in the DL last year because it was still from the COVID season where teams could get promoted but not relegated. So they had like one more team.
Right. Well, so there's 15 teams in the DL now.
No, there was last year, but now it's 14 again, and they just like moving the teams back down basically.
Okay. Poster pick. You were a VIP at the finale in the DEL.
That's actually a more complicated story because I actually won like an esports tournament of the NHL franchise. Like like I won the whole thing for Germany. So I
You won
got
the
like,
whole thing for esports. So that means you're playing NHL against other people.
yeah, so I actually won the like German championship twice and that. So when I went there, I got those
So you can game.
yeah, you could say so, but I think it's just like in NHL you have like a lot less players like in like other big esports titles, like if it's
So you're a
FIFA
Deutsche
or
Meister too.
yeah, you can say.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So those two VIP tickets basically were the prize. By the way, I never got that prize because of the COVID season.
So how many games you have to play to win that?
Back then it was just a tournament, I think like with a few hundred players, I think.
So what was the score of the final game? Do you remember? Were you nervous? You taking like pregame naps and stuff?
No, it was like a we played that final in the arena in Cologne in like the Lanxess arena, but just in like one of the like during a DL game, like just before a DL game.
And you're playing at the arena, and like, do they show it on like the screen?
No, it was just before the game in like a small VIP lounge.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. And then poster pick, who's the guy with you? You're wearing an Elevate shirt. I don't know, maybe he's a soccer player or some kind of
Yeah,
athlete.
Yeah, he's a soccer player. He played for Eintracht Frankfurt, which is like the most local Bundesliga team in soccer for me. So, but he actually just moved clubs and went to Paris.
And who's that?
Randall Colomwani is like a French player who's like
Okay.
in the World Cup final last year and stuff like that. I just met him at a game near my home.
And then another poster pick is Boston Levi, Mike McNamee. You guys jersey?
Yeah, like that. Mike McNamee was playing in Bad Nauheim was when I was just a fan. And, yeah, I just bought his jersey because I really liked him in preseason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and now he can play music. You heard that stuff.
Yeah, I know he's a man of many talents.
Yeah. And then one of your poster picks is an article. I don't know, maybe it's your first one ever. I'm not sure. It's Gluck's Griff, Bad Nauheim, Gang, Tristan Keck. I'm thinking that means a new player, Tristan Keck, is doing something good.
Yeah, it wasn't my first article. It was like 2 years ago in that season when Bad Nauheim was bringing in like a lot of new players, and he was one of them, like a Canadian player as well, Tristan Keck, and they have Taylor Voss. I don't know if you know these players.
No, I think I'm too old.
So yeah, they were like pretty good together. But so I wrote an article about Tristan Keck because he actually played like a few games in the British League when they didn't have like a real season during COVID. And then he came to Germany and nobody really knew who he was. And then he just had a great season and he's like the fastest skater I've ever seen. So I wrote
Right.
an article about him. And then after 1 year in Bad Nauheim, he went to Kassel and he's still playing there right now.
Oh, okay. Well, and it is cool when you guys write an article about a player. I remember when the Ice Hockey News would write something about me, and like you're like, oh, so everybody's reading that, like I'm doing good, and it's like, well, that can help me, right?
Yeah, sure. Like it's just a lot. I just love this job talking to players and writing articles about them.
I
Yeah,
do
I
too.
just
I
love
love this hobby I have of getting to chat with people about hockey and stuff. It's like if you wouldn't have reached out to me. So how did you find out about it? Because I have no marketing team. I just got Jake in Manchester. So I don't know if you knew this, but because of this, they now throw chocolate on the ice in Manchester, England after every win. And in Herning, Denmark, they throw Twix on the ice for the goalie, Matt Caruth. And there's chocolate getting thrown all sorts of places. So how did you find out about it?
about your podcast, you mean?
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was because of something Jerry Kuhn posted to his story. Because
Nice.
like a couple or 3 years ago, I did in that season preview we do. Like he was like one of the best goalies in the DL2 for the last few years, and I really respect him. And I did like a huge article about him to like kind of open that season preview magazine.
That's
and
cool.
and he told me basically a lot of things like about his life, about mental challenges during his life, and I really just appreciated that. And I think I kind of created a nice little story about him where he's like telling people about his struggles, which I really respect. And I'm still thankful for him that he opened up and told me that story. And
I
I'm just glad I could share it.
I completely agree. He did the same on the podcast, and I had a few people reach out that it was very powerful listening to him open up and tell it how it really is, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I don't
And
know what to say. It's just appreciate it.
small world was I got up at 5:30 this morning to talk to him and Cody Lampel and Straubing. And
Oh.
then Lamps had family stuff and kids to take care of, and said he couldn't make it work this morning, and I went back to bed. You know, we'll
That's
figure out a new
unfortunate.
time to do it, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, those two are great guys in the game of hockey, and
definitely.
both towns are lucky to have those people around.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite favorite hockey arena in Germany?
I have to go with my hometown arena in Bad Nauheim because it's like old school. It was built in 1946.
Doesn't it? Isn't it like open air too?
Yeah, it's like just has like one closed off wall and then it's still open air, which can be like weird because like when it's like raining for a few days and then it's really hot, it just like it gets foggy. So Taylor Voss, actually current player of the team, he's like also creating the jerseys and designing them. And he also created like a new merge with Fog Devils because they called the Red Devils, but when it's like foggy sometimes. So
Fog
now,
Devils.
yeah, so now everyone's wearing that. So I think that's kind of
There are
nice.
some
But
games in Germany that were so foggy you couldn't even see across the ice.
yeah, like a couple games of this were played last season. Like a couple of them were, I think, was like basically too dangerous to play, but they still did. I don't know how I don't know how the goalie saw the puck.
Well, I remember there was one game where we'd play for 5 minutes and then they'd make us all come on the ice and skate around together.
Yeah,
And
they
then
still do that.
yeah, that doesn't do shit.
Yeah, but so I love the rank, but they desperately need a new one because they have to like pay like just it costs them so much to renovate it every year so that they can
They should just
use.
do a full reno like Landsuit did and make it sweet.
Yeah,
It's much better keeping the existing arenas than building brand new ones that all look the same and have no
no character.
personality. Yeah,
Yeah,
no character, no personality. German arenas were my favorite of all the hockey places I played. Every one was very much its own place, you know?
yeah, I completely agree with you, but I think if they do that, it's just gonna be like basically impossible because it's so old and like has those wooden structures. But I'm not sure.
Okay. I only got a couple more because who are the best players in the DL2 right now? Couple
Ooh,
names.
that's a tough one. I would say Taylor Walls is one of them who I just mentioned. Then probably the new goalie Castle signed. It's Brandon Maxwell. He's played in the DL for a lot of years and just in Sweden recently.
Okay.
And and then I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him play yet, but a lot of agents and coaches and people I talked to have said that Andrew Jogen will be a really good player. He's played in Austria over the last few years.
Okay.
And then
Where's he?
there
I don't even know where he's
to
playing.
Regensburg.
Oh,
Regensburg.
Regensburg, eh? They got money again
Yeah, they got money again.
for now.
They fun out.
Okay, so free ads. What's your favorite restaurant in Bad Nauheim? Because I've never been there because they weren't in the league when I was there.
Such a small city, it's even hard to say, but I would say a local restaurant called Schlemmer Bistro Blockhaus. It just has like great burgers and schnitzel.
Burgers and schnitzels, steaks too.
Um, I'm actually not sure about that, but probably.
So yeah,
But I could be
schnitzels are my
lying here.
thing. I understand schnitzels. I'll eat them all the different ways, you know.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't really have anything else other than you're loving your new job. You get to talk hockey, and I guess you get paid for it. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that's correct. I just love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for reaching out to me because for all the players that are all over, it's like the question I always ask when they come on the podcast is where and what are you doing now? Because it is interesting. We all finish hockey and being hockey guys, and then it's like, well, what do we get into next? And everybody, there are a lot of firemen, police officers, financial advisors. There's a lot of guys that get into the similar things, but then there's a lot of us doing totally different things, you know?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for taking me through your career and even speaking about the emotional parts because I just appreciate that you're telling your story. And I know that if I write the story, that a couple of or maybe more than a couple, a lot of fans in Bietigheim and Landshut, they will see Brent Walton is doing this now. Oh, that's interesting.
So I guess I never did say what I'm doing in the real world, eh?
Yeah, that would be another question I have. Yes.
So I am the engineering technical supervisor at a global heat treatment company. So we do on-site heat treatment. We're called Superheat.
Okay.
It's an absolute beauty from Kincardine, Ontario. That's started a company that has become global. It's huge, and our headquarters are here. So I work 5 minutes from my house for great people, and I run a team kind of like it's hockey. I treat them the way I'd want to be treated, and I try to give them all the tools they need, even if it's the right schlagers, you know?
As I noticed throughout this interview that you still have your German vocabulary on point. So how would you explain your job in German?
Oof. Ich habe ein Mannschaft, and ich bin Trainer. Ich macht I don't know how to say this. What's heat treatment?
Yeah, something with Hitze, but I have to think about it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, we heat up pipes and welds around the world
Yeah.
and metal,
Yeah.
and my team tells them how to do it, so yeah. Well, thanks for making the time and thanks for reaching out because it can mean a lot to a guy that did his best when he came to Germany. And when it's all over and you leave and you never go back, it meant a lot when Renee Schoofs invited me to his game and Justin. But then also Philip Meikle, who I just had on from Landshut days. The reason he came on was he wrote in an article in Germany that I had been one of his biggest influences as a player.
Oh, that's cool.
And it is cool. And then it's people writing articles, and then you get to see that, and it makes a memory. And it brings back my love of the game that maybe I did leave a bit of an impact, and that you're willing to do this and write an article about me 10 years later. It does mean a lot,
By the way, I do have one more question that just popped into my mind.
Yeah.
Have you already planned out how you're going to be celebrating your birthday, which is on November, I think?
When I turn 40.
Yep.
I'll probably be at an arena coaching hockey is what I'll probably be happening. I haven't got the schedule yet. But no, nothing planned. Probably just be another day. Just keep going.
Enjoying the time with your family.
Yeah, pretty well as busy as I could be with the real world, coaching hockey, and mixing in as many podcasts as I can. Okay, well, thank you for your time, sir, and I can't wait for the article. You know that I'm going to have to get a copy of it, though, right?
Definitely, I will send one to you.
Okay, that would be great, sir, and thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been another episode of Zwei Ales und Hockey Tales mit Heß and Wally.